Well, what is going on, everybody? Welcome everybody into the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Show on the Overreaction Sports Network, powered by the Believe Sports Network. It is so good to have every single one of you joining us. My name is Joe Miller, and you can find me on Twitter at Joe Miller Wired, alongside my two co-hosts, former Buffalo Bills John Fina and Jerry Ostrowski. You can find them respectively on Twitter at Ostrowski_Big O and at John Fina. It is so good, as I said, to have every one of you guys with us. Do us a favor, please please subscribe, whatever platform you are consuming this vidcast, this production on, whether it's in video form live right now or it's in podcast form, whatever it might be. And for some reason, my laptop is not working. Please do us a favor, please subscribe. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, give us a big thumbs up. So good to have every single one of you, as I said, joining us. Welcome to all those joining us live in the chat right now as well on YouTube. Happy Father's Day, gentlemen. How was your respective Father's Days? Father days?
Mine was great. I mean, I got a great gift from my two boys, and the twins were at the house, and we, your typical Father's Day. We had a Father's Day barbecue, which means nice. I cooked, and it was quite it was quite delicious. I had a good time.
That reminds me of this video I saw on X today where it was like Mother's Day and mom's getting catered to and it's Father's Day. He's walking out with his golf clubs and his wife's like, Where are you going? You got to cook for everybody. We got people coming over. Heat up the barbecue.
Yeah, there was
mine was odd. It's the first time ever I've had a Father's Day with no kids around.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a little unsettling, I think, a little strange.
Did you cry, John?
I did cry a little bit, but that's only because I was chopping jalapenos and I got a little jalapeno in my eye.
Yeah. So did your wife? Did Melissa say, "Don't cry for me, John Fina"? Did she?
That's epic.
Joe Miller just went.
Now we're recording this.
He just went a Vita on us. You remember when you were a kid and they used to have the commercial about you could pay like $9.99 and get all the classic musicals on tape, and I think
I fell for it. Not the musicals. I got the blues collection.
Speaking of just memes and gifs and all that stuff.
That was right after the Columbia House ad where you get 700. You get 700 CDs for one.
And there's no way to stop it. You're on hold for like 9 hours. Stop charging my credit card.
Yeah, amazing, absolutely amazing. Well, mine was good as well. We went out to Lime Lake and spent the day with my dad. Got to take a boat ride. The weather here, predictably so, was not great. It wasn't rainy, but it wasn't necessarily the best. But it's also not 114 degrees here like it is currently in Tucson, Arizona. But it is good to have you two joining me as we get to have this conversation about the Buffalo Bills here on a Monday live on YouTube. Training camp, or I should say mini camp, is all wrapped up. OTAs are all wrapped up. All the phases of 1 and 2 and 3 and who knows what, and coaches can't be on the field and coaches can be on the field, and who knows what they can do and what they can't, and when and where and everything else. All that is over. All of it is behind us, which is exciting. And as I put the title of the show, Ready, Set, Training Camp, because we are all staring down the barrel of training camp once this last vacation, these last couple of weeks are over for the NFL players. So the first question that I have for you two gentlemen, and I will answer as well, is how are we feeling going into the break about this football team right now and its roster?
I'm feeling pretty good. Obviously, we had a couple of dings in OTAs and training camp. Of course, Joey Bosa, but if you saw the videos out there, Bosa participating in a lot of stuff on the sideline. If you're doing resistive runs with bands and bungees and things like that, he's far enough along where I'd almost imagine if it was game time, he would be playing. The Cole Bishop situation, while he wasn't there the first 2 days, he did more the third day, which leads me to believe that that's not too bad. Now, we did have one scare with Hairston, but it ended up being what they say, a hamstring tweak. He seems to be fine. So obviously this offseason, productive because everybody was there. And I say everybody was there. Everybody but one person was there and was participating. So it was good to see that. We got the Josh Allen wedding behind us, and it's time to roll into Rochester and get ready for the upcoming season.
Question about Joey Bosa. Did he look like he was favoring one side over the other, or is that just the big man lumber? You know how like bigger dudes like kind of like run? They don't really run like
in the resistance training, or just
well. There was times that there was times that he was doing just the get outs as well, getting out of his stance without the resistance. It looked to me like he may have been favoring a side over the other, but I couldn't tell because like I said, a lot of times bigger dudes like that don't run like the smaller guys where their heads don't move. Right, everything's moving underneath them.
Right. No, I would think that he had a little bit of a giddy up a couple times. Some of that was when he was running the hoop a little bit, maybe kind of running some turns. But the fact that he was still doing it, I mean, I'm not too concerned about it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I echo what Jerry says. I think, you want to take it easy. And preliminarily, anytime you get an injury, the first stretch of days, you're just still trying to assess, like, how bad is it? And you don't want to go find out how bad it is by pushing yourself too hard. So you ease into it. You're a little bit ginger, on your steps, on your get off and things like that.
We're talking about Joey Bosa, John, not Joe.
Not Joe.
I was like, I'm a lot ginger. What are we talking about?
Joe's a lot ginger. But in addition to what Jerry was saying, I think there's a lot of swirling optimism, right? I think especially around the wide receiver room, right. Lots of really exciting things, as exciting as they can be coming out of OTAs and Mini Camp, really point in the right direction, that the room appears to be more equipped than it was last year. Good things about Dalton Kincaid being talked about. And I imagine with the addition, if Jackson Hawes is ready to go, having that blocking tight end, 2 feature tight ends that can catch the ball, and a strong rotation of wide receivers, I think that really builds my optimism.
Well,
and it's hard to see anything on the defensive side of the ball, really, in no contact drills.
Well, the funny thing that you talk about Hawes and his blocking, all the reports out of training camps and OTAs were how well he was doing receiving the ball and catching it, and making a lot of big plays in the catching game. So we all know he can block. If he can bring any sort of resemblance of a passing game to the Bills, that's even better. So no, I agree with you, John. I mean, the Hawes reports have been very, very good.
The Hawes reports. That's the title of a new show.
The Hawes report. No, I'm excited as well. There was. It's hard to answer questions until you get there, right? And obviously, there's looming questions. Is Joey Bosa going to be able to get through most, if not all, of the entire season? I mean, he didn't make it through day 2 of OTAs. But like the Elijah Moore piece for me was big, as far as just hearing the media talk about his flash and how good he looks. And I think what's interesting to me, and maybe the two of you can speak to it, is you see wide receivers that are elite. Garrett Wilson. There are guys that are elite wide receivers that play with not great quarterbacks. DeAndre Hopkins has played with not great quarterbacks in his past, that still seem to produce. But Elijah Moore is one of those guys that has been in bad situation and then moved to another bad situation from a quarterback standpoint. How much are we getting ahead of ourselves as far as believing that what he really needed was a quarterback like Josh Allen?
I don't think we're getting ahead of ourselves at all. I mean, top 2, top 3 quarterback in the league, MVP. I mean, I can just imagine how that guy feels. Like, holy crap, somebody's got my back here. Someone who's going to fit a ball into a tight window with confidence. All I got to do is just work a little bit harder, and then I'll be rewarded for that hard work. I mean, talk about the carrot. He's ready to go. I think that's incredibly motivating.
But isn't there something to be said for like what I was talking about, like with Garrett Wilson, with Brian Thomas Jr. last year as a rookie, did not have a great quarterback situation and just had phenomenal. There's guys that regardless of their quarterback, their talent shines. And I guess that's where I'm wondering, Jerry, in the sense of like, wouldn't Elijah Moore have been turning heads in New Jersey and Cleveland prior to this, before getting here?
Well, I mean, at the Jets, if you look at the Jets situation, not only was the quarterback not good, he was like 3rd or 4th on the depth chart as far as wide receivers go. So you had that aspect. Now the Browns were an absolute mess. I don't care who was playing quarterback at the present moment. I mean, they were a complete mess. And if you look at their roster, obviously not crazy loaded at the wideout spot. But no, I think this is an opportunity for Moore because, and it goes along with what you said, Joe, and the fact that he's had kind of a built-in excuse up until this point, and that being unrest at the offense coordinator position. You know, both of these teams have had multiple coordinators. Unrest at the quarterback position. Both of these teams have had unrest at quarterback. Now he's in a offense that's very, very stable. The coordinator is going on another year being there. The quarterback obviously is one of the best in the league. And now there's no more excuses. I mean, now it's produce, or maybe what you've talked about in the past isn't true. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, he's got a tremendous amount of natural ability, considering he was picked, I think, 34th overall when he went to the Jets. So it will be interesting. I think the biggest thing, and you talked about that wide receiver room, is him and Joshua Palmer, getting them involved early, getting them confidence, because I think the more we get them involved, it opens, I think our passing game in the last couple of years, because of the receivers we had, was much more compressed. And if we get these guys up to speed like Palmer and Moore, and we can spread the field a little bit, that's going to open things up for a Keon Coleman, even more so for Shakir, even more so for Dalton Kincaid or Knox. So, I'm looking forward to seeing all that stuff and how it plays out once camp begins.
And it's got to be a little bit of a relief for him to think, God, I don't have to be the guy, right? I mean, if I'm the number one target, expected to excel with what I have under center, that's a suboptimal situation. Now he can join an everybody eats mentality with, like Jerry said, with a very good offensive coordinator who continues to evolve and grow in his philosophy, and with the ability to, take the roof off of it, take the lid off. Everything will open up for all of them. And I think the everybody eats mentality, as much as people in the comments might be throwing up in their mouth a little bit, they hear it so much, it even bodes better now. If the right guys are in that position and the ball gets spread around, who do you stop?
But I threw up all over myself while you were talking about that, because everybody eats to me is nothing but a marketing campaign. And it's a way to take the emphasis off the fact that we don't have a true blue. God, I can't believe I'm getting to say this.
The record scratch. I was waiting for it. I was like,
out of body experience right now.
Freudian slip.
Wide receiver one on the team, right?
But show over. Like we're done here.
But I digress. In all seriousness, if Joshua Palmer or Elijah Moore demand the football because of what they're doing, are we going to say, yo, Joe Brady, let's not throw it to them too much. Everybody's got to eat. And they're not. That's, to me, everybody eats means none of these guys, they're all on the goal line getting ready to run 110s, and nobody has got out in front of the group yet. As soon as somebody gets out in front of the group, you can go ahead and scrap the everybody eats thing, because you're not going to hear it as much.
Yeah. John, you started to say something. I didn't know if you had a follow up. This actually,
I feel so dirty right now. I'm a bit lightheaded.
I know, it's kind of gross. What I would say to rebut what Jerry says, the everybody eats mentality. Even last year, every game we sort of ended up with the guy, right? That was the beauty of it, is different characters in games showed up and had more catches and greater yards than the other guys, and it was a little bit of a carousel. Now, I agree in part with what you say, Jerry, that it'll settle in as people, as one player commands more attention and is at a higher production level. But the nice thing is there is 2, 3, and 4 to come after 1 and 2.
Yeah, Jerry shaved off his beard and now his filter's gone. I don't know if that's how that works or what, but interestingly enough. So I literally have penned down for next week's show already. What should we expect, or effectively, I want to ask you two guys. I'll give you the week to think about it. What would you expect, or what are you expecting from the 2025 Bills offense? We know effectively who the 5 wide receivers are going to be. We know obviously Dawson Knox is there, Dalton Kincaid is there, Hawes is now a rookie in. Are they going to continue to shoot 3 tight ends? We would expect them to. And then obviously we know that James Cook is planning on playing and being here, and then the running backs from there. So it'll be a fun maybe exercise to talk about just some things that you saw last year, maybe some teases into this year, and then effectively what you two think possibly we could see from this Buffalo Bills offense. Joe Brady, as far as changes he might make this year. Before we, so that's next week. And then I guess the next thing that I would have is just, What questions do you guys feel, Jerry, what questions were answered for you this offseason, kind of going into 2024, finishing the season the way that it did? It's in the comments section that, like, we still don't really have a punter defined or a holder, which is true. That's probably something they're going to need to address relatively quick. But what questions were answered around this roster for you this offseason?
I think the biggest thing is that Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott and the likes, they feel that the defense is as bad as we all think it is. And most of their assets this offseason were placed upon the defense. And it's not just the draft. I mean, you look at the free agents they signed. They brought in multiple free agents to help bolster the defense. They made a substantial investment in the draft on the defense. And then the other thing we have to really look at is the coaching staff. They've added 4 pieces to the defensive side of the ball on coaches alone, to where we've got 3 defensive line coaches. We've got 3 DB coaches. There's multiple assets in the coaching field. And one thing I learned the other day, I was talking to a friend who's very privy to what's going on at One Bills Drive. And it was interesting to me anyway, the last couple of weeks, we keep hearing about this Nielsen involvement. First, it was taking over the D-line. Now he's teaching pressure packages at mini camp, and he's running meetings. And you're like, well, how does that bode for, Bobby Babbage Jr.? And what I did learn is that they've gone, and whether they've done this in the past or not, which they probably have, but it's even more so now, you can kind of see it. All the defensive assistants have something they've been given as far as a responsibility. And Nielsen's responsibility is pressure packages, and which goes hand in hand with pass rush, blitz, all of that stuff. And, what's funny is, and John will tell you this, nobody knows this, but we had a little bit of this when we played. And, Marv, known as the special teams guy and a head coach, but every Thursday when we installed short yardage goal line, Marv Levy was in that meeting, and Marv was a big part of the short yardage goal line packages. We had, John will tell you, what was Marv's favorite play? 20 and 21 what? 20 and 21 zap trap. That was Marv's favorite play, right? And it was in every game plan every week, all right? But, so staffs do this where coaches get emphasis so that all the workload's not placed upon one guy. But I think my biggest, thing that I'm happy about is they are investing on the defensive side of the ball, and we all know that was highly needed, and that's probably the one piece we need to shore up to get where we want to go.
Yeah, and to think of it in another terminology is they've created a lab, right? They brought experts in from various fields, and they come into that lab together, and they're doing these experiments, and that brings in different philosophies, different types of packages that you're going to play against different offenses. And, if you have that free exchange of information and another set of eyes or 2 more sets of eyes, you see things in a particularly different way than somebody else does. So when it comes to game planning, when you're understanding offense's weaknesses and where you want to attack, it's better to have, as long as they get along. And trust me, they don't always get along. There have been coaching conflicts, as long as there have been player conflicts. But if they can create a lab environment where they all work together and pull off each other's great ideas, then I think it bodes really well for the success. And I'll say it shorter than Jerry said it, because he said everything. The investment in defense is what we needed. The only question mark that I have is, will Hairston be ready? How much will we have to rely on Tre'Davious White? That to me is really the only piece, barring injury, that gives me any pause at this point with the defense.
But is it a bad thing if Trey White keeps Hairston off the field for a little bit?
No, as long as he's playing at a high level. No, it's not a bad thing at all. I just, my concern is that neither of them are ready. Not that Trey is ready or Hairston is. It's that neither is.
Yeah, Jerry, I don't know if you want to jump on that.
No, as far as Hairston goes, I think the thing that I think makes him more ready than people give him, credit for or whatever, is while he may be a little bit technique deficient. First, and I say technique deficient, there's technique in college and it's all the same, but maybe speed of the game deficient would be better to use.
Yep.
He's an extremely good athlete and has the ability to make up for that with his athleticism. Where you got a Trey White who's some years old and, finishing out his career. So
Yeah.
I think when it's all said and done, we'll see Hairston out there, but you never know.
Yeah. And set your expectation, Bills Mafia. He's going to get burned. Every rookie cornerback is going to get burned. Veteran cornerbacks get burned. If he comes out and has a great first game or second game, and then whoop, something happens in the third game, give the guy a little grace, right? Because it happens to all of them.
Yeah. The question effectively was, what questions were answered. And I feel like a lot of questions were answered on the offensive side of the ball, right? I mean, when you look at the wide receiver room going into last year versus how we feel about it going into this year, I think we all feel pretty confident with the 5, maybe 6 that they're going in with, led by Khalil Shakir, who very much, answered the bell last year. The defense, to me, there's still, to me, a lot of questions out there, specifically due to the fact that you've got 2 free agent signings, that Ogunjobi and who's the other one, Hoyt, who effectively aren't going to be around for the first 6 games due to some suspensions. I feel like going into the first 6 games, 8 games, we're going to be like kind of on the edge of our seat, not necessarily sure what to expect from the defense. And Scott Blakely asked the question, what about safety? What about the safety position? More depth? Are we comfortable with what's there? What you're feeling? Anyone?
Yeah, I mean, how much more depth do you want? Do you want 25 players in camp instead of 20? I mean, look at all the guys they signed at safety. They signed Derek Forrest, who has substantial time in the NFL from Washington. You go ahead and you pick KJ, not KJ Hamler. You take the kid from Ohio State, okay, that is there, who's a guy they're going to transition between that nickel package, nickel corner and safety. So you got him.
Jordan Hancock.
Thank you, Joe. Then you got Cam Lewis. Then you got DeMar Hamlin. You got Cole Bishop. You got Taylor Rapp. Strong's a corner. But the point is, how many more safeties do you want in the building? I think they did a good job of addressing it, and you'd like to think that the guy that they made moves for to get up into the second round to take Cole Bishop is a guy they're kind of leaning on heavily. So I don't necessarily agree with that comment from Scott Blakely as far as safety position depth. I think they got a ton of it. They got to figure out who's not going to be there and who's going to be there more than sign more guys.
It seems like you're starting the season with Cole Bishop and Taylor Rapp, and then effectively, the idea would be that at some point, Jordan Hancock comes in, whether it's this year or next year. To me, linebacker is still a little bit of a question mark, right? Linebacker depth. And I know they just signed the guy from Carolina that who was the guy that just pulled in from Carolina? Shaq Thompson. Or was it? Shaq?
No, it's Thompson. You're right.
Shaq Thompson, right? Who has familiarity with Brandon Beane and with Sean McDermott. Them going back to the old faithful, right? The old well of, we know this guy, an AJ Klein-esque type signing. Now, I don't know much about this player. I don't know how good he is. I don't know, Jerry, if you, in the rounds that you make and all the shows that you're on, if you guys have kind of talked through it or if anybody's kind of given you any insight on him. But I feel like there's question marks on the defense still, but at the same time, this offense, Josh Allen, we saw it last year. I think they can overcome for a season, not a season, for a few games, for a stretch. They can overcome anything on defense.
I was going to say, have we not gotten enough evidence that yes, the offense is good, but we still need to play defense to get where we want to be. And I think we're all to that point. So I mean, obviously, I think the Thompson guy, I think, is a good signing, but once again, it's another veteran trying to come off of an injury. With the pieces we have in place, he probably doesn't have to get rushed in as much. But I think him coming in is probably, I would say that it's probably as a Mike is the guy behind Terrell Bernard. Probably Dorian Williams. So they've tried to teach Mike is more of an off-ball linebacker. He's more of an outside linebacker, see ball, get ball guy. So I think bringing Thompson in again probably knows some of the verbiage and should be comfortable with what we do.
And as far as numbers go, Joe, I mean, if you go to ESPN and look at the depth chart, they list 4 starting defensive linemen and 3 starting linebackers. We're a 4-2 front. So just take one of those rows of linebacker and push it up into the next one. And you've really got, including Joe Andreessen, you got 6 names for 2 positions. So as far as depth, I mean, I'm confident Milano, Bernard, Williams. I don't know enough about Shaq Thompson yet, but I think that Andreessen, Ulofoshio, those guys with 1 extra year under their belt, everybody has to have at some point trial by fire. And if they were good enough to be on the team last year and they have been schooled and they're working hard, at some point you go in, your heart rate goes up, your adrenaline starts pumping, and you show why you have made the team the past couple of years.
I asked Ralph Wilson this, and Ralph says Shaq is small, old, and injured lately. Which one of our linebackers isn't small, isn't old or oldish, and hasn't been injured lately? That's any of them, not just Shaq Thompson. So
that's every position in the league, man. That's like from game 1 to game 16 when we
Bernard hasn't finished the season. Milano hasn't. Hell, Milano's played about 6 games in 3 years.
Well, it's funny. It's funny because I'm not saying that other content creators and networks and stations haven't necessarily talked about it, but I know that we talked about it last year, Jerry. At the very least, you and I did. About it was the 3 of us. Just that the McDermott design and his prototypical linebacker is small and a guy that has a tendency to be often injured, to which we were like, well, you're going to need 10 of them like to come in. Now, Joe Andreessen, and they've got guys in there that are all kind of in that same 6'1", 6'2", right, 235 to 245 range. And the good news is the report is Joe Andreessen looked good. There's an opportunity. I don't know that he'll ever be, Matt Milano, but who knows, right? It seems like they're going to have to attack that position as always with depth and guys that can come in and step in. And you almost just pray to God that Terrell Bernard doesn't get hurt, right?
True. I believe that. But I think also, and it's kind of what we've seen in the offseason signings of Ogunjobi and Hoyt, and then the way we drafted, is, by the way, that I'll get to that in a minute. That's hilarious. And the way we drafted is the emphasis on the 4-2-5 is the front. Your defensive line has to be good and has to
That's
play.
Exactly where I was going. Look what they did there, right, Jerry?
That Ralph is good. Linebacker room is everybody rehabs. Very, very, very true, Ralph.
Hey, listen, when you go into any NFL training room, it's like the old post office. You take a number, everybody's getting ice or some sort of therapy. You're like, okay, when am I up? And you're like looking at the counter at the post office, and I'm like, I have 99. They're on 7.
and you're right. And Zach of all trades over in the comments says it. And if you're in the show and watching, get in the chat. If it's good, we'll talk about it. He says that Balin Spector, that's him to a T. I even forgot about Balin Spector. Hell, he's rehabbed for the last 6 years, I think. So
it'll be interesting to see. So clearly the question mark isn't, I don't think depth is, even if you end up with, Damar Hamlin playing at the safety position, you're not losing football games because of Damar Hamlin. Is it ideal? No, but you're not losing games. And then, so I feel like that's going to work itself out. They're going to get the guys, maybe not that they necessarily want. It's going to depend on who's ready. You might get surprises, but it seems like Bishop, Taylor Rapp is where you're going to start. And then linebacker, you're starting 2, to John's point, 3. You 3 guys are ready to go. And then it's going to be just about depth, and effectively you just hope to stay healthy, right? And then you're looking to effectively just survive on the defensive line until those 2 guys show up, right? Till they can play.
Yeah, it's somewhat. Yeah.
Yeah, and corner, you're set. I mean, you've got effectively 3 starting corners right now. And the reports I saw was that Christian Benford looks like the best player on the defense, which is wild to think about. Like, what is, as former players, and Jerry, this might be a better question for you, just coming into the league the way that you did. What does confidence do for a player? Like, and I know the answer, but I want to hear it from a professional athlete, and you both can answer. But Jerry, you start. What does confidence do for a player? You come in. Christian Benford is I believe a 6th-round draft pick. You're a long shot. You're up against a number 1 draft pick in Kair Elam, and then effectively every year his confidence just builds, and what does that do for a player when he's got confidence?
Well, I think as far as players go, I think after toughness, confidence is probably your next most important thing as a player. Obviously, you got to have toughness to play this game because it's an extremely hard game to play. But your confidence as you keep going and the more reps you get and all that, confidence is a huge thing. And you see players all the time that don't make it, that have just unlimited amounts of athletic ability. They just don't have the mindset, or they don't have the confidence in how they play. So, no, I think it's huge. Saw some pictures of Benford. He looks great. I mean, he's jacked. I expect nothing different from that guy. I mean, it's been a big-time success story for the Bills, picking him where they did and then him turning into the player that he's turned into.
It's interesting because both of you kind of went through it, your entrances into the league just in different times. Jerry, you went through getting drafted, getting cut, and then ending up on the Bills practice squad, and then playing, and then cementing yourself as a vital part of that offensive line in Swiss Army knife fashion. Which, by the way, that's the T-shirt that needs to be made for you, Jerry Ostrowski, in some sort of Swiss Army knife. And then, John, I know your story well as far as in college, and then your coach basically pumping confidence into you. Like, look, if you get serious about this, you could play this game for a job. And you were like, what? Right. Yeah. So, I mean, it kind of builds from there.
Yeah. Here's another thing about developing confidence, right? You got the toughness, you got the anger, you got the mean, right? When you start to build confidence, it's a little bit like the horses in Central Park. They put the blinders on them because they don't want them to see more. They'll get distracted. They'll get spooked, right? And as a player, when you build your confidence, you open up and you see more of the game and you recognize more. And now I know from the offensive line position, the more I could see the whole front seven and safeties moving and corners creeping and things like that, and Jerry was great at this too, the defense would typically tell you what they're going to do. So translating that into the cornerback position, you're feeling good enough that you can look at different wide receiver stances, motions, sets. You could see the rest of the field, understand how the down and distance is going to matter into that play selection. And you feel confident enough, like to break, to jump a route, to do things of that nature. And, once you have that, man, hold on to it. Hold on to that confidence.
But I want to also bring to light too. I mean, just because John was a first-round pick doesn't mean he doesn't have his own set of challenges to deal with. Those guys might have more pressure on them than the late-round guys, because guys that are late-round guys are free agents. Nobody expects them to do anything. So all you got to do is show up and work, keep your mouth shut, and learn, and then go out and produce. I mean, John had his own set of pressures. Coming in from Arizona. I mean, not many people knew about him.
Super Bowl team.
Right. I mean, and then all of a sudden, so he's got a lot of pressure on him to live up to that first round pick status. And I know he's laughing, but he won't say that. But
I will.
It's also it's about confidence with him as well. To be confident to say, you know what, I deserve to be this guy. And it's a whole nother set of deals.
Yeah. Well, after Will Wolford left, that first training camp down in Fredonia, Jerry, we used to do our one-on-one pass right up against the fence. Yeah. Fans were 30 deep, and getting my ass handed to me by Bruce Smith over and over and over again was about the most humiliating, debilitating thing to confidence that you could ever go through. And I don't know how I didn't hang him up and say, this is just too bad. The very first time I beat Bruce Smith in one-on-one pass, I took a victory lap. I ran around the drill taking a victory lap.
I could totally see it too. That's not far-fetched.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, this has been a great conversation. We got a couple minutes left. Let's do this. Let's talk about it. We kind of discussed this before we went live. Let's finish the show with each of our decision. Hopefully they'll be unique. And if not, I'll go last. So I'll pick somebody that one of the two of you don't pick. Let's talk about who we feel like our breakout player for 2025 is going to be. So clearly it cannot be Josh Allen, that dude. But yeah, for all intents and purposes, Jerry, why don't you go first? Breakout player for 2025.
Bass, the kicker. No, actually, my breakout player for this year, the guy that I want to see really take a step forward and show that he deserved to be a third-round pick, would be Dwayne Carter, the interior defensive tackle. Whether he's playing a 3 technique or they decide to beef him up, put him at nose, we need some experience depth inside before these rookies get rolling. And he's the guy that can do that. I mean, he put stats in only 5 games last year out of 17. And he did get hurt and had the wrist injury, but hopefully things have slowed down for him where he's able to be at the very bare minimum, a very reliable depth piece. And I'm not saying he's got to go out there and get 10 tackles a game, but we got to be able to put him in and everybody goes, hey, you don't notice the fact that he's getting blown off the ball or not making plays, that he's holding his own and doing that stuff. Because if he does that, then the TJ Sanders of the world and those guys, it's a lot easier for them to transition and have the time to develop. So my guy that I want to see breakout this year is Dwayne Carter, second-year player out of Duke. And if he can do that, he'll greatly help that inside play.
John Fina.
Zach of all trades, get out of my head, man. How do you know? You read my mind like it's children's literature. Listen, initially, my thinking is Javon Solomon, right? This guy, he's a little bit backed off the depth chart because everybody's kind of Landon Jackson love right now. And I think that's going to motivate Javon Solomon with the way that the defensive end position rotates, much to Joe's chagrin. And Bosa can be a who knows what kind of guy. I see Javon Solomon coming in and making a real impact. Now, don't get me wrong. I'd love it to be Landon also, but I'm picking Javon Solomon for a surprise guy, impact plays early in the game or early third quarter in the game.
You just gave me an idea for a show in 2 weeks. If we're talking about what do we expect to change from the offense in 2025, we can talk about defensive expectations as it pertains to just sacks in general in the pass rush, because to me, we're going to be having more of that heated conversation that you guys hate to debate me on. If the Bills aren't in that 40 to 50 sack range and the defensive line doesn't make hay in the offseason or in the postseason rather. So so I've got two show ideas for the next 2 weeks, which is really, really, really great for me. But good choices for both of you fellas. I'm actually going to take Dalton Kincaid. I know he was injured last year, which hampered him a little bit. I feel like this year with Khalil Shakir kind of cemented Keon Coleman with a second year, Palmer and Elijah Moore, veterans that have skill sets that, in my opinion, complement each other. When you look at what they're going to do, Dawson Knox is just ever steady. Like, he's the guy that's going to catch a 23-yard pass when you need it with his fingertips. If he has to, he's going to annoy defenses. But I feel like Dalton Kincaid this year, I feel like Joe Brady wants to get him very much into that Sam Laporta role where he just annihilates defenses and has the potential just to drive defensive coordinators crazy. We know he can catch. We know he can run routes. We know he's got smooth hips. We know he's got soft hands. To me, this is potentially the year he puts it all together. So for me, it's Dalton Kincaid. You guys
love it.
Thoughts on that one? Yeah.
Well, I also think too that, the quarterback has to do a better job of getting Dalton Kincaid the ball as well.
I agree.
And there's documented proof that he was not great at that last year. Real quick before we get out of here, I know that we're up against it, but Ralph has a question. What's up with Sanders not signed by now? Here's what I know. So somewhere out there, some jabroni franchise in the top 3 to 4 picks of the draft. Okay, so basically everybody's slotted, but those franchises have the ability to tweak wording and language if they want to. Some jabroni out there, GM, gave a player guaranteed money in the second round, guaranteed like X amount of years of the contract. If they get injured, they're going to pay him the full amount. So because that happened, and we talked about this the other day on the Bill Squad show, because that happened, now there's a logjam behind them. Right. Everybody's, because if one gets it, everybody else wants it. That's so right. There's wording issues right now in the contract because of this team and franchise that has come out and guaranteed money to a second round guy that's not with the normal wording of these contracts that's got everybody else logjam. So that's kind of what is going on. I think probably TJ Sanders' representation is trying to get the same wording put in his contract that this one or two franchises did for their second round picks.
I actually haven't even been paying attention to it. So are there more guys behind TJ Sanders as well that have not signed because of the same situation?
There's some the second round is where it's all
a mess.
Jammed up. It's a mess. Yeah.
And of course they're gonna pay it forward in a negative connotation, meaning that next year all the second rounders are gonna want the same thing, right? So this is basically they've set a precedent.
Well, it's the same thing when John and I played. They were like, hey, we can't do guaranteed money. Because the minute we do guaranteed money, everybody's going to want guaranteed money. And the minute that teams realize we can't function as a franchise under the salary cap by paying these guys these exorbitant amounts in signing bonuses, then they started doing the guaranteed stuff. And then that's when that all became into play. So, yes, it's definitely a copycat deal when it comes to contracts.
Great conversation with you two fellas here on the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Show on the Overreaction Sports Network, powered by the Believe Sports Network. So good to have you guys joining us live, and also those of you that are listening in podcast form. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, we will be back next week. I've already given you kind of the show topic for next week. But before that, Wednesday, the Big O Show with Jerry Ostrowski. Jerry, do you know what you're talking about on Wednesday?
Yeah, I think I'm going to talk some D-line.
Ooh.
We're going to talk defensive line and maybe some theory with the defensive line. That's what I have on my mind right now. So we'll see what happens.
Good. Love it. Well, for me, for John, for Jerry, for all of us here at Overreaction Sports, we love you guys. We appreciate you. Go Bills.
Go Bills.
Much love. Go Bills.
Talk to you guys soon. Go Bills.